February 19th, 1945, Iwo Jima, 8 a.m. The ocean was calm, unnaturally calm, as the landing craft dropped their ramps onto the volcanic beach. 1,000 boots hit black sand that gave way beneath them like wet ash. Sergeant William "Red" Harris of the 5th Marine Division cursed as he sank to his knees, his flamethrower pack nearly toppling him backward. "Christ, feels like we're landing on a stove," he grunted, adjusting the heavy twin tanks strapped to his back. The smell of sulfur and diesel mixed in the air as waves lapped against the bodies of burning vehicles. Above the din, Japanese mortars began their rhythm, sharp, metallic thuds echoing from Mount Suribachi. Harris had hated the flamethrower from the first day he trained with it back at Camp Pendleton. A suicide can, they called it. 60 pounds of fuel and nitrogen pressure slung across your spine. If a bullet hit the wrong valve, you'd go up like a torch. Most Marines preferred the Thompson or the Bar. The M2 flamethrower? That was for the poor bastard no one envied. Yet as they advanced inland, the poor bastards became the only ones making progress. Machine gun fire shredded the beach. Bunkers, called pillboxes, were invisible until they opened up. Concrete and volcanic rock had been fused together by Japanese engineers into nearly impregnable nests. Marines fired rifle grenades, tossed satchel charges, even called for Shermans, but the defenders didn't flinch. Private First Class Joe Walker, Harris's assistant, crouched beside him. "They said the Navy bombed this place for 72 hours straight," Walker shouted over the gunfire. "They didn't bomb underneath," Harris yelled back, eyes fixed on the cave mouth spewing fire. The M2's twin tanks hissed as Harris opened the valve. He moved up slowly, heart pounding. 10 yards away, a Japanese machine gun nest spat tracer rounds. Harris raised the nozzle, a long metal wand with a pistol grip, and squeezed. The roar was immediate. A jet of fire leapt forward, licking across the sandbags and into the dark slit of the bunker. For a heartbeat, the world turned orange. Inside, screams echoed, then silence. Harris stepped back, chest heaving. The stench of burned oil and charred flesh drifted through the air. Walker stared, wordless. Around them, the other Marines finally surged forward, passing the bunker that had pinned them for half an hour. The old flamethrower had done what rifles and mortars could not. Behind them, Mount Suribachi loomed, wreathed in smoke, a black monolith watching as men burned, bled, and clawed for every yard of hell. February 21st, 1945, northern slopes of Suribachi. The air stank of scorched earth and death. 2 days after landing, the Marines had advanced barely 1,000 yards. Every ridge, every pile of rock hid another ambush. The Japanese defenders weren't fighting from trenches, they were fighting from beneath the island itself. Inside those tunnels, men became ghosts. Corporal Harris crouched behind a shattered Sherman, his flamethrower pack refilled with thickened gasoline. Napalm, a new mixture that clung to everything it touched. The tank hissed softly, like a sleeping serpent. "Red, you sure this thing ain't gonna blow us both to hell?" asked Walker, loading another clip into his Garand. Harris gave a weary grin. "Kid, if it does, we won't have time to notice." They moved forward toward a cave entrance no wider than a coffin lid. Smoke poured from it like breath from a dragon. A Japanese soldier had fired moments earlier, one round, clean through a lieutenant's throat. The Marines had learned the hard way. Never assume a bunker was empty. "All right, flommers up," yelled Lieutenant Connors, waving them in. "Let's clear it." Harris crawled to the edge, feeling the heat of his own weapon radiate against his neck. The nozzle trembled slightly in his hands. He took a deep breath, remembering the instructor's words from Camp Pendleton. Short burst, sweep side to side, stay low. He squeezed the trigger. A river of fire poured into the darkness, roaring like a storm. The cave's interior lit up, shadows of bodies flailing, ammunition cooking off, screams muffled by stone. Harris cut the stream after 5 seconds. Silence fell, then the dull thud of collapsing earth. "Clear," he rasped. The Marines moved in, boots crunching over molten sand. Inside, the tunnel walls were lined with charred rifles and burned maps, a command post. The Japanese had been waiting for nightfall to counterattack. Walker knelt beside a melted helmet. "Jesus. Keep moving," Harris muttered, his voice hollow. "There's 50 more of these ahead." By noon, The flamethrower teams were the most called-for unit on the island. Every platoon begged for one. The Japanese bunkers were impervious to artillery. Only fire could snake through their firing ports, cooking the air inside until even the oxygen ignited. But every shot came with a cost. The fuel lasted only 7 seconds per burst. Refill was hell, unscrewing caps while snipers watched from ridges, transferring sticky gallons of gasoline through funnels that stank of death and fear. Many Marines never lived to finish refueling. Still, the line moved, inch by inch. By the 4th day, Harris's shoulders bled raw beneath his straps. His hands shook from exhaustion. But he knew one thing now. The weapon he'd once cursed had become their salvation. That night, as tracer fire streaked across the dark horizon, he lay awake beside Walker in a shallow foxhole. The sky flickered from the constant bombardment offshore. "Red," Walker murmured, voice low. "You ever think about what it's like in those caves for them?" Harris didn't answer for a long time. Then quietly, he said, "Yeah, every time I pull the trigger." The island burned through the night. February 25, 1945, North Iwo Jima, near Motoyama Airfield No. 2. The battlefield no longer looked like Earth. It was a landscape of craters and twisted steel, where the sand itself shimmered with heat from days of nonstop shelling. The Marines moved through it like ghosts, silhouettes against pillars of smoke, their faces gray with ash. Corporal Harris trudged behind a Sherman tank named Coffin Maker. Its turret bore fresh scorch marks from the last engagement, and the crew inside barely spoke. On its rear deck sat the new weapon everyone was talking about, a flamethrower tank, the M4A3R3, nicknamed Zippo. "You see that, Red?" Walker shouted over the rumble. "Finally, they built a version that won't roast the poor bastard carrying it." Harris cracked a dry smile. "Don't jinx it." The Zippo lumbered forward, its coaxial flamethrower mounted in the hull. When it fired, the sound was different, deeper, almost animal. A gout of flames spewed 100 feet ahead, enveloping a ridge line where Japanese defenders had held out for days. The fire rolled over the rocks, sucking the oxygen from the air. Even from 50 yards away, the Marines felt the heat on their faces. "Looks like hell opened up," someone muttered. It wasn't far from the truth. The Japanese defenders, the 109th Division under General Kurabayashi, refused surrender. They fought to the last man in their labyrinth of tunnels, some dug 50 feet deep. Every yard gained had to be earned in blood and fire. Harris's platoon was ordered to clear a stretch of caves leading to the airfield. When they arrived, they found a maze of interlinked tunnels, every entrance covered by machine guns. Flamethrowers, satchel charges, grenades, all would be needed. "Red," Lieutenant Connors barked, "you're on point again." Harris nodded silently. He'd stopped flinching at the order. As the team approached the first cave, a sniper cracked a round. The bullet whistled past Walker's ear. The Marines hit the dirt. Harris rolled behind a boulder, heart hammering. The M2's fuel gauge read half full. Enough for maybe 3 bursts. He crawled forward, sand sticking to his sweat-soaked uniform. The entrance loomed ahead, dark, narrow, silent. He took aim, inhaled once, and pulled the trigger. The flame shot forward, roaring like a jet engine. Inside, the tunnel became a furnace. The blast forced hot air outward, blowing ash and smoke into his face. When it cleared, the machine gun fire had stopped. He motioned for the riflemen to move up. They passed him quickly, masks over their mouths, stepping into the newly blackened cavern. Moments later, explosions rumbled from deeper within, ammunition stores igniting one after another, echoing like thunder across the ridge. The ground shook. Harris dropped to one knee, bracing himself as a pillar of flame burst skyward through a vent hole. Walker stared wide-eyed. "Whole damn mountain's burning." Harris just nodded, voice hoarse. "Then maybe we can finally go home." That night, as they bivouacked near the airfield, word spread through the camp. The stars and stripes had been raised atop Mount Suribachi. The volcano that had watched them suffer was now under American control. But for Harris and the others still clearing the northern caves, victory wasn't a flag, it was survival. He sat beside his drained flamethrower, staring at its scorched metal casing. Once, he'd thought it was an antique, a relic of the last war. Now he knew better. In the end, on that island of smoke and black sand, the M2 wasn't just a weapon. It was the only thing that could fight fire with fire, man's answer to a fortress built beneath the earth. As dawn broke over Iwo Jima, the sky glowed orange, not from sunrise, but from the fires still burning in the hills. And somewhere amid that inferno, a weary Marine named Red Harris muttered the words every man there understood. "Old or not, this damn thing saved us all."